Today's episode is He Promised Me with the Flow TV. He promised me. In the Bible, the Lord promised the people a king. And in this process of him finding a king, he went through David and Saul. So the promise is going to be there regardless. David was anointed with a promise. However, Saul was king at the time. You trying to stop the process of God is not going to stop it. I don't care what it is that's happening. Even in the Bible, the events went on as God chooses Saul. The people accept Saul as king. Samuel rebukes Saul as king. And then the people rebuke Saul as king. And then God rejects Saul as king. And then David is anointed as king. Not right away, though. Not saying someone else's mess up is your promise, but if he promised you it, no matter what it looks like, it's going to come to pass. With David and Saul, he anointed him. And then sometimes not right away are you going to be going in the process of your promise. You have to work through it and get through it, as I mentioned before. He is rejected as king for his disobedience at the beginning and the end. But God promised me, even though he promised the people a king, whether it's good or right for that season and that time, regardless, he's going to bring them a king. In the Bible with Joseph and Pharaoh, his brothers didn't see right away what God had promised him or the dreams, because a promise can be in a dream, a prophecy, or a prayer. God will reach out to you anyway to promise you. And sometimes we don't think it's going to come to pass because of what it looks like around us. But God shows us through the process that this is the season, this is the reason, this is the why, this is the test, this is the promise still. Genesis 41:33. Now therefore let Pharaoh select a discerning and wise man and set him over the land of Egypt. The servants said, and Pharaoh said to his servants, can we find a man like this in whom is the Spirit of God? And then Genesis 41:39, then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has shown you all this, there is none so discerning and wise as you are. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Only as regards the throne will I be greater than you. In Genesis 37:5, going back, Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf roses stood upright while your sheaves gathered in around mine and bowed down to it. I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. I went back and read that after the fact, and I saw again after reading it over and over again, but his brothers went and met up with him, and then they came back and they're like, oh, there's still money in my sack. However, I have this. How many times have God promised you or showed up in a season, and then he's showing you the promise in the process, but he's still showing up and it's a part of the promise. It's even better and greater than the promise. So the process is greater than the promise, but he still promised you. Even in your process as a servant, he will still promise you and bring it with forth, regardless if you reject it or other people reject it. He's still going to show you in that process. You have to learn the way of God, the word of God. Sometimes he opens up the mysteries of God. You have to know God himself and have a relationship so you can get to know your true self. I just wanted to tell you guys that because sometimes we get discouraged and lose hope in our promise. But if he promised you something, he's going to bring it to pass regardless of what is happening, despite whoever attacks you or whatever tries to come up against you. The hell can beat up against it, but don't go against the grain of the promise. Don't go against his word and what he said to you. Because if you go against what God is showing you, it is your will and your way. It is why you were predestined here. He knew that before the foundations of the earth. He created you specifically for the promise because you're a part of his plan. Much love. Be blessed. God's love.